The first thing that I need to do is to see where to put the router. I will put it sideways, in such a way that I have easy access to the locking lever, easy access to the button that locks the router shaft to change the router bits, and easy access to the wheel that sets the RPM. I measure to make sure that I put it right where I want it, so that it doesn't bump against the table structure or against the router lift. I will use the plastic base as a pattern to drill the holes for the bolts. I must be careful to use it in the right position. I put the tabletop in place, and I measure to locate the router place. I center the plastic pattern, making sure that it is in the right position. I draw the place for the bolts, and I draw the plastic base shape too. Using the router, I make 2 mm deep holes to host the bolt's head. I make sure there is place to tighten the bolts with the wrench. Using a drill bit with the same diameter of the bolts, I drill the holes. And I check that the bolts enter in the holes, and I check that the heads fully enter inside the larger holes. These are the bolts I should use. I would cut them to length, so that they enter in the router base holes. And these are the ones I used in my first try. They are easy to cut to length. The problem is that they are too weak, and a couple of them broke when I tightened them, and the broken parts stayed inside the holes in the router. I wasn't able to remove the broken bolts, so I decided to drill the holes in the base from side to side. With a chrome bit, I drilled the board from side to side. It is better to drill on a scrap of wood. When I attach the router to the board, I must make sure that the cable and the cable anchor bolts go inside the big holes in the base. I put the board on the base, and I try to find the holes for the bolts with the help of some nails. Now I have to deal with the cable and the anchor bolts until I put them in the hole between the base and the board. It is some difficult, but I must make sure that the roller base fully touches the board. I remove the nails and I insert the bolts. I didn't find long and hard screws, so I had to use the same ones that I used in my first try. My bolts protrude from the other side, so I have to tighten them with the help of a wrench. Now I can put in place the board with the router. And I check how does the rotor lift work. Before I forget it, I attach the dust hose to connect the shop vacuum cleaner. I install in my rotor a trimmer router bit. I put the plastic base on a 3mm MDF sheet with some double-sided tape. I use that tape you can see in the video, but it doesn't work as well as the double-sided tape. I lift the trimming bit until the small bearing is above the MDF sheet, but still touching the plastic base. When you use a router or a router table, always remember to wear safety glasses and ear protection. If you don't have a shop vacuum cleaner, you should use a dust mask too. I must be careful. I found that when the router bit doesn't turn fast enough, because it has a small diameter, the sheet gets away from my hands. I put my insert in place on the board, and I cut the shape with a cutter. I cut a couple of times to make a deep cut. I push the router until the strike router bit touches the board. I block the router, and I set the router depth adjustment to the MDF insert thickness. I want to be sure that I won't cut too deep. Don't cut too deep. It is better to cut an whole board to see how the MDF sheet will fit. I clean all the shape, but I leave half centimeter near the cut. I check that the sheet fits flush. If needed, I adjust the cutting depth. I route it again to reach the needed depth. Now it is flush. Now I bring the router bit closer to the cutter cut. When I am right in the cut, I will see how the wood jumps. In some places the splinters don't let me see the cut, so I must turn off the router and sand. I have to cut the corners with a chisel. I may need to make deeper holes for the bolts heads. After some work with the chisel and after sanding the insert, it fits quite well. I attach again the router to the board. I route a hole in the insert. I can't use a strike bit to do that, because they don't have a cutting edge in the top to drill. Now I use the router bit I want to fit that insert and I cut the zero clearance insert. This is a thick board, so the router bits doesn't protrude too much. I will sometimes use a collet extension. And there it is, the router table with a zero clearance insert. So far I made 4 inserts, to use with 4 different router bits. Thanks for watching.